Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Shield, and this is my husband, Benjamin Shield.
Hello.
And it is lovely to see you all this morning. We are so excited. This is our new Facebook Live podcast, and we are going to be exploring some very deep and interesting topics about love and romantic relationships and women and men and having compassion for the opposite sex, all kinds of fascinating subjects. I think that this is really going to be an extraordinary experience for all of you. And what I love about this is it appeals to both men and women. So what's extraordinary about it is that in my lifetime, and I'm a pretty discerning woman, I have never encountered ever another man like my husband. And I truly believe that he has one of the most beautiful minds, male minds, I've ever had the good fortune to explore. And I've been exploring this male mind for 19 years now. I think that he is the kind of man that many women are looking for, maybe most women. Yeah. And I think that he is going to express in a beautiful, compassionate, heartfelt way some things that many men and women have never heard articulated in this way. So I'm very excited to do these Facebook Live podcasts. And today we have a fascinating subject that came up when we were working on my book, as many of these topics do. And we were talking about this hunger that women have for men to open up and get emotionally naked, become vulnerable. And we are really at a loss, many of us, because so many men just seem emotionally unavailable. And it's heartbreaking.
Right. And it's confusing because women want a man who is emotionally available, sensitive, caring, and in touch with the feminine side.
And attuned to our feminine needs.
Exactly. We also, women also want a man who is very much in tune with his masculine side.
Yes.
And so often, particularly in this new age, that men can cross that line of being heart-centered, open, emotionally available, and cross too far into their feminization.
Right, into their feminine, embracing their feminine side.
Yeah. And I think for a relationship to really have vitality is that a man needs to be a man, and that allows a woman to be a woman.
Right, and when you have two people who are too close to the center, a woman maybe who's more in her masculine and a man who's in his feminine, there's no friction, there's no passion. It's like brother and sister or good friends, right?
Right, and we want a man to have a certain masculine edge in the best sense of the word. And we're not talking about male toxicity. We're talking about man who embraces and loves being a man and loves his woman being a woman. And I think that many men have tried to open into their feminine side, and rightly so. But it leads very often to someone crossing over and to become over feminized and thinking that it may be attractive to a woman.
Right.
Having that heart-centered, open. But what the woman might see is a man who has no edge, is too soft in his masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And it may even make her become more masculine in the relationship
Wow.
to fill that gap, because someone has to be the man and someone has to be the woman.
Right.
We're hoping the man is going to be the man, and the more the man can be the man, the more a woman is allowed to be in her feminine nature.
But a lot of women, based on our socialization, with becoming more masculine, when we have a man who doesn't step up, it's just in our nature that we're going to step up and take charge, right? And it's going to push him even further into that feminine role. And then we're going to resent them even more.
Right. I think a lot of it has to do with respect. And a woman can respect a man who is emotionally available, heart-centered, caring, and masculine.
But how do you do that without crossing the line? That's the thing. Like, men want to please women, and so they go out and they start trying to do what they think is going to make us happy. Some really good men will do that. And then they lose themselves in the process. They lose their masculinity by trying to be open and emotionally available. And
right. And I think there's another way for men to look at this, that the more, coming from a strong sense of masculinity, it gives us the ability from that masculinity and strength to be compassionate, kind, caring, all the things that we would want, but it's coming from that masculine strength rather than letting that masculine strength dissipate and think that the caring, compassion, kindness, all those things come from a lack of masculinity and crossing the line into femininity. It just doesn't work.
mm-hmm. So how does a man not do that? Like, we know some men who we love very much. They're lovely, lovely people, but in some ways they've embraced the new age psychological paradigm of looking at issues and problems, and they've done it in a way that it's become who they are, processing, and they almost think that that's okay to talk, in conversation about your inner child. I mean, coming from men, it's a little, I don't know. There may be women listening who are like, no, I would love for my guy to talk to me about his inner child.
And there certainly may be. But I think one of the many things that detract from a man being masculine is being tethered to his past, being tethered to his past wounds, to over-processing life experiences again and again and again.
To getting caught up in processing.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I once saw a T-shirt that I loved. It said, I digested my inner child.
Love it.
Yeah, I think that,
You never told me that. You were saving it.
and I think many men who become over-therapized
Mm-hmm.
and become addicted to workshops
Mm-hmm.
and processing over and over and over again, get so tethered to the past that it's hard for them to be in the present. And for a relationship to have its energy, its juice, its vitality, it all happens in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if people are saying, yes, I'd love to do this with you or be this way with you, however, because my father, ... or my mother, or because of these wounds and these past experiences, I can't. But I'm working on it.
Well, and you have a woman and a man doing that. That's so tiresome.
Yeah.
That would be, I couldn't even imagine. That would be so awful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would want a man to open up and say, I'm having trouble at work, or, to be honest about what's going on in his life. And even to say at some point, yes, this was my family life growing up. I want you to know who I am and how I got here. But if he was still going back to his mother-father wounds and talking about that all the time, oh my goodness, that would be unattractive for me personally.
Yeah. And you asked how a man can
Yes.
be in their masculinity. And one way is to have role models, whether it's in person, whether it was a teacher, whether it is a friend, whether it is the father of a friend, whether it's in literature, whether it's in a movie, but to have a role model of what that can be.
But there's so few for men today. There are so few really amazing role models for men today.
I'm laughing because the typical sitcom, which has persisted from maybe the 1950s on, is the kind of the goofy guy with the really attractive, intelligent, patient woman, and like from the Honeymooners on, through the Flintstones, to just to modern day sitcoms. Those have been the role models for men, that it's okay to be goofy, that they're still going to be lovable and come out well in the end.
Yeah.
But in real life, that's not the case. All of these role models and all of these sitcoms and really have to do with men not being masculine at all.
Right.
But kind of stumbling along and being saved by a strong woman. And it's really the woman in those relationships that has assumed the masculinity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking the reverse is the superhero movie, right? The strong, that's the man's fantasy, being the average guy who turns into the superhero and saves the damsel in distress. But we're living the opposite. So many men are becoming the damsel in distress.
Right. Which I think is one of the reasons why these Marvel superhero movies are so popular.
Right.
Because I'm not this, but I can see this on the screen and it's wonderful to see. And I leave, with that feeling for maybe 3 hours after the film. Excuse me, but it doesn't stick. Because they're not really role models. I mean,
they're superheroes.
They're superheroes. They're wearing tights and capes. Which worries me also.
That's true. Oh, God.
Yeah. For a true role model, there has to be a resonance of frequency.
Right.
When someone says, I can resonate with that frequency. I can be that. I can cherish the things that make a man, which doesn't mean hunting and fishing necessarily. It means showing up. It means being responsible. It means being protective. It means the ability to be able to cherish the woman he's with. It means all of these things.
But it also means, and the thing that really is important for men to know, it means having boundaries with women.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that's missing, is that so many of these men go overboard in trying to please us that they lose themselves in the process.
And I think we all need boundaries, whether we're children, whether you're a husband, whether you're a wife, or a male, female in a relationship. We need boundaries. And if we don't have boundaries, we keep pushing to find those boundaries, to see where those boundaries are. And sometimes they don't exist. And we're lost in the relationship.
Wow.
We don't know how to be, how to act, where our requests should stop, when our behavior is inappropriate. There are no boundaries. So we keep pushing, sometimes exaggerating the worst part of ourselves, trying to find those boundaries.
And then that turns into anger and frustration and
Loss of respect.
and distancing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
distancing.
Distancing, it sabotages the intimacy because there isn't that container.
Yeah.
That's so sad. And that's where fighting or just stonewalling or contempt come in. Those Gottman four horses of the apocalypse, because there are no boundaries. People don't know where that's so sad.
Yeah.
But then bringing it back to, men trying to please us, or thinking when we are, pleading with them to be emotionally naked, or to be vulnerable, or to share their inner worlds with us. It's like that very fine line. And how can a man show up and, like, when if I say to you, I want you to be emotionally available to me. What does that mean to you? Like, as the man that you are, how do you hear that?
Well, first, I think all of it comes from masculine strength. And we're not talking about toxic masculinity. We're talking about the strength that comes from good qualities. And building that strength comes internally, comes from looking at role models, comes from the choices we make. It also comes from the woman, how she responds to the man. And for a man to feel like a man, he has to be appreciated as a man. So even simple things like, I love when you order for me, or I love when you open the car door for me, or I love when you give me words of affection.
Are these all the things you want me to say to you, baby?
Those are the things you do for me.
Yeah, do I? Oh, good. I'm so glad.
And you just say, would you order for me? And it makes me feel like $1 million.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. I'm so glad to hear that.
Or that, when I open a door for you, you just say, oh, thank you. So all of these things coming from a woman helps to bolster a man's masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And make you want to be open with me, feel safe to do that.
Absolutely.
I build you up as a man. And I also, there's one thing I know I do for you, because I did this intentionally, so I can claim it. I think but I wanted in this relationship for the man who became my partner to feel that he could bring all of himself as a man to this relationship. There's many things that women are afraid to hear from a man, that when a man is vulnerable and is being very honest with us, he may say some things that feel threatening to women. Like, he might say, look, I adore you. There's no one in the world who turns me on like you do. But if I could have a free weekend and never have to explain myself, and I could just, have a hall pass and go and do whatever I wanted, that would be wonderful. And then I'd come back and I'd be all yours. We'd pick up where we left off, right?
Well, coming from masculine strength, there's a large container.
Mm-hmm.
Without that strength, a man may feel very uncomfortable sharing vulnerabilities that may make him look even less than a man. So if he does not have that masculine strength, that if he shares something like, I'm really afraid of heights, or I'm really worried about this, or I feel insecure about this. He may, if he doesn't have that masculine strength, that container of the strength, that man may not be emotionally available because he may feel, I'm just going to be less than in her eyes. But if a man is strong and comfortable in his masculinity, he could say, I've done all these things, and I'm in comfortable heights. I can do anything else, but I'm not going to be on that suspension bridge, where it's shaking. And a woman will not think less of him, maybe even more, because he's showing that coming from this strength, he could share these vulnerabilities without feeling less than a man.
But there's also women who would still see him as less than a man if he shared that. And it's partly about women also learning how to open up that space for a man to really bring his full self.
Yes.
And making it safe for him to do that. And I think that there are really sharp, savvy men who have been hurt in that way before with women. They've opened up, they've shared, and they are looking for a woman that they can really share openly with. And so they'll just, they'll have one date. And if they feel that a woman is hard to please, if she's critical, if he feels that he's having to constantly prove himself to her, she'll never get a second date.
So I think one of the things that, Rich, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, that a woman, there are men.
I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That I think the biggest buzzkill for a man feeling masculine is shame.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't take many instances for if a woman shames a man or a man to retreat from his masculinity. That is the biggest buzzkill.
Mm-hmm.
So if a man does something that where he screws up, that if a woman shames him and he feels shamed, he's just going to retreat. He's going to retreat, and it's going to be a buzzkill on the masculinity and a buzzkill on the relationship.
Well, and just in dating, if a man picks up on a tone of voice, I mean, these things are subtle, they're quick, and they're often just a moment where a woman says something about an ex-boyfriend or, is condescending, but men can pick up on that stuff and that'll be it. If they feel, because they can hear it, a lot of men are listening for shaming women.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll run. They will walk away. It doesn't matter how pretty she is or educated or successful. There is a part of, I think if you heard that from a woman, if she was telling a story about her ex and she said he could have just stepped up, like, why didn't he step up and be a man? You would never ask her on another date just for that one statement.
No. And I don't think it's about how beautiful a woman is, how educated a woman is, what her career is. It's about how a man feels with that woman when he's with her.
Yep.
And so if a man is with a gorgeous woman, absolutely made up, a nice penthouse apartment and all of that, but if he doesn't feel like a man with her, it's not going to be a happy relationship. If he's with another woman who may not have all of those attributes, but he feels like a man with her, that's who he wants to be with. That's who he wants to stay with. That's who he can see a future with.
Mm-hmm. And these are, we're talking about some men may get seduced by a woman's beauty. It may feed his ego and he'll stay in a relationship with her because she's beautiful and he feels like, she's a trophy and it makes him happy. So those relationships happen, but we're talking about really extraordinary men who have their acts together, who are these exceptional human beings and really are aware, like you, of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And, one of my clients, this is such an extraordinary story. It just continues to blow my mind. I interviewed her on my Tuesday Facebook Live with her husband, Doug. So Karen and Doug, you can see that interview on my website. If you want to go to lisashield.com, you can see it there. And Doug said he looked at every single age-appropriate woman in his area on Zoosk, and he read every single profile, and there was only one that he responded to. And that man knew what he was looking for. And it's not the stuff that we tell ourselves all the time. It's not, the hottest, youngest, smartest, most successful woman. He was looking for a good Christian woman with good, solid Christian values. And he could tell a great woman from her profile, and Benjamin wrote that profile for her. He took her words, he took her heart, her ideas, but he crafted this profile that really expressed. He even put that she was looking for a good, Christian man right up front and center in the first paragraph. And she was scared to do that, even though it was her heart's desire. And because of that, Doug contacted her, and she was the only woman on Zeus that he contacted. And a year later, after completing my course, Karen and Doug got married. And the best news is, you want to hear the most mind-blowing thing of all? She retired from her nursing career on her wedding day.
Oh.
Anyway, Doug knew what he was looking for. And he was a man.
Yeah.
He was a man.
You mentioned men who wanted a trophy bride, a trophy wife. Those aren't true masculine men. Those are men who are pretending to be masculine and having the accoutrements of the car, the trophy bride. Often when someone points out that a man walks into a restaurant with a trophy bride, I'll say, yes, but it wasn't first place.
It wasn't first place. That's so funny. Wow, we have so many illusions about love and what it looks like and how it's supposed to be. I knew I was very realistic. And in some ways, look, I never wanted to lead with my beauty, and I never wanted to feel like that was my greatest asset. First of all, it wasn't. I lived in Los Angeles and I was competing with stunning women, some of the most beautiful women I think I've ever seen in my life, all in one place. But I started to redefine what it meant to me to be a woman, the kind of woman I wanted to be. And I think from that place, I was able to attract the kind of man I was really looking for. But it was deeply internal. I knew that this was about so much more than what I had always thought it was about. It was about being able to meet a man where he is, and being able to give that man all the space he needed to have full expression of who he is with me, and to be able to receive that from him.
Right. And what I feel from you is that everything you do in our relationship is to make my life bigger and to create a large enough container that if I do something or I have an idiosyncrasy, it's not shameful. It's just part of that container, and you accept me and even love me for all of those things. And I feel that.
Yeah, there's nothing I don't love about you. Nothing. Nothing. I love everything about you. I love who you are. And I want to make you feel loved.
And I think your femininity, the femininity that you bring into the relationship, bolsters my masculinity. So you ask how a man could feel more of a man is when a woman feels more like a woman.
Yeah. I think that, so many women are working so hard to be feminine. And I never worked at trying to be feminine. Like, I really want to put that out there. That was never something that I was trying to do. I wanted to be a woman, and I wanted to know what it meant to me to be a woman. But I think I became feminine, or by being, I think the way I became more feminine was not by listening to other people's ideas of what it meant to be feminine, but to tapping into that feeling inside myself. And part of it is looking through the lens of love. It's not something I have to reach for or something I have to put on an act of being feminine in a certain way that other people say this is feminine. But it's through love. It's through looking into the eyes of a man and seeing what pleases him and listening to your feedback to me when you tell, when you are responsive and you light up, and then, oh, okay, I struck a moment, I touched him, but I see it reflected, right? And more than anything, I wanted to be playful. That was really, to me, being playful was leaning into that feminine, flirty stance. But the way I am successful or have grown in my femininity is by looking in your eyes and seeing what delights you.
Yeah. And I see every day as a gift, every day with you as a gift. And when men when they overprocess, when they're tethered to their past wounds and stories, and there's not much playfulness in a relationship. It's always has an underlying serious tone. Mm-hmm. They may spend moments that are playful, but it's not a playful relationship. So I think that's one of the keys of a happy, healthy relationship. Yeah, is playfulness.
I think that there isn't a lot of playfulness in a therapist's office. No. There's not a lot of playfulness that happens there. And that's sort of what a relationship can become, especially with a woman, because women tend to take on the therapist role with men, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. Like that's something, and we do that partly because it's an inroad for us to mold you into who we want you to be. And it makes us feel useful, and we process with our girlfriends. So we know that that's something that we can help you with. But it really ultimately becomes tiresome, and it rips the joy from the relationship because it becomes a therapy relationship.
Yeah, it becomes hierarchical.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's no longer two equal partners, but it's a therapist and client.
Yep. That's exactly what it becomes. And then it's not sexy. It isn't sexy. A man loses his power and his, masculine strength, and the woman becomes the therapist. I mean, I've been there, and I know what I wanted out of it for me, because I didn't know how to capture the heart of a man like you. I settled for men that I thought I could help, or where I had a sense of purpose and where I felt that they needed me. With you, when I met you, one of the most challenging things in this relationship that I had to surrender to was knowing that you didn't need me. You didn't need anything from me. You needed me. You need me. You'll never find another one like me.
And I want you.
And you want me. But you didn't need anything from me. And when we met, I had to surrender to knowing that if you were with me, it was because you wanted to be with me and not because you needed something from me. And that was big. That was big. And I looked at you and I thought, this man is a man, and he knows what he wants, and he'd never be with somebody. I respected you so much, and I knew that you wouldn't be, you were smart, and you wouldn't be choosing me as your partner unless this is what you really wanted. And I had to just accept that I was enough. I was enough for you.
more than enough. More way beyond.
I love you so much.
I love you, sweetie. Well, good.
All right. Well, the one thing I want to end with is just to say for everybody that finding this beautiful balance in a relationship between the masculine and the feminine is what we're all reaching for. And you don't want to become a man's therapist. And for the men, you don't want to let women you don't want to make them your therapist. When I met Benjamin, I realized that if I had ongoing issues and problems, I didn't want to bring that into my relationship and make my partner my therapist. I didn't want to set that up. And I didn't want to put Benjamin in that position. I knew I would go and seek the help of a therapist if I had a real personal issue that I needed to work through. And I wasn't going to project that on him. So finding that balance between the masculine and the feminine is incredibly important. And you don't want to feminize men. Men, you don't want to become feminized. You will not make us happier. You will actually lose your power with us and turn us off, even though we're asking you to be emotionally naked and vulnerable and emotionally available. So you have to somehow do that work with a therapist and let it go there, right? And draw a boundary with the woman that you're with and say, I see a therapist. I don't necessarily want to discuss what I talked about in therapy with you. I want to keep that personal. I can share an overview when I'm ready to. If there's something I feel you need to know, I'll share that with you. It's not that I'm hiding things, but I don't want to make you my therapist. I'm seeing a therapist because I'm working through that stuff. But as a man, you have to then look at it, own it, integrate it, and let it go.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add that when we talk about balance between masculine and feminine, we usually think of a level, but it's really that the more masculine a man could be, the more feminine a woman could be, the more feminine a woman could be, the more masculine. And so it's not a level balance. It keeps growing and growing and growing.
Honey, on that note, I love you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you to everybody who showed up today and who listened in. We do these every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. We may make it a little earlier. We're just still
10 a.m. Mountain Time.
Yeah, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's not 10 a.m. everywhere in the U.S., by the way. But please tune in, tell your girlfriends, tell your male friends. This is a talk that members of both sexes can really benefit from. And if you have questions, if you want us to talk on a particular subject, our best suggestions come from you. So please write to me, lisa@lisashield.com. Send me your suggestions, and we'll do a whole talk on your topic. We are here for you. We want to explore the subjects that are interesting for you. We'll come up with some that we think are great based on our lives and our conversations, but please send us your suggestions. Sometimes our best suggestions come from you. Tune in again. I also do a Facebook Live every Monday from noon Mountain Time to noon 30. And I also do another one on Tuesday evenings at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So please tune in. Follow us, follow me on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. I can be found on Instagram, and come back again. And most of all, go to lisashield.com, click the link, and watch my free 45-minute presentation. I can help you get this solved. If you want to wake up 3 months from now with everything you need to find your Benjamin, I can help you do that. So please go to lisashield.com and watch my webinar or my presentation. Webinar is no longer in vogue. And if you watch it, at the very end, you can sign up for a free call with me or a member of my team. So please let us show you how we can help you get this solved so you can cross Meet My Soulmate off your